Hey guys, Matt Smith back here with you Sunday morning, week 13 SEC recap. I'm just going to do a quick video today given the length of the Thanksgiving weekend. Don't want to spend too much time recapping the Thursday, Friday games and such. So just quick review of the 9 SEC game slate, and then we'll touch on the national scene, the Heisman race, the playoff race a bit. So Thursday night Egg Bowl, Ole Miss 31, Mississippi State 21. Quarterbacks, gutty efforts. Neither were spectacular. I thought Matt Corral and Will Rogers, but the key series, the big drops right before halftime. Mississippi State dropping three straight likely touchdown passes allowed Ole Miss to get to halftime with the lead. Defense kicked butt in the second half. Great job all year by that defense, taking so many strides from last year. So almost headed to New Year's Six Bowl, 31-21. Friday, 34, Arkansas 34, Missouri 17. Two guys that really could use a month off from football right now. KJ Jefferson and Treylon Burks, both phenomenal again. Tyler Biddy over 200 yards for the fifth time this year for the Tigers. But Arkansas wins it 34-17, 8-4, probably headed to maybe an Outback or a Texas Bowl. Saturday, Georgia 45, Georgia Tech nothing. Looking forward to Alabama next week. I think the passing game is starting to evolve for Georgia. Brock Bowers looks like the best tight end in the country right now. He ran a route designed for a 5'10", 4'3" guy. Slant over the middle and outran the Georgia Tech defenders for a touchdown. He's turned 35, turned 40 pounds. You're not supposed to be able to do that at that size, but he did that. They got George Pickens back. I think he would be available for maybe 10 to 20 snaps next week against Alabama. So that passing game is looking really good. And for Georgia Tech, that's 110 points they allowed consecutively to end the season. 10 to Boston College, 55 to Notre Dame, 45 to Georgia. 3-9, miserable year. 3 for Jeff Collins. He's got to right the ship, or he's probably gone after next year. So Georgia 45, Georgia Tech nothing in Atlanta. Ugly one in Gainesville, Florida 24, Florida State 21. Ton of turnovers, long 4-hour game, a lot of reviews. But the Gators get it done in about all 5 and 6 teams. They'll get to a bowl. Florida State not going to a bowl. So Greg Knox, in his potentially only one game as interim coach, might coach the bowl game, gets a win for the Gators, one of 13 SEC teams headed to a bowl. The Iron Bowl, of course, Alabama 24, Auburn 2022. You all watched it. You saw what happened. My thoughts, Bryce Young was awesome in the big moments, was under pressure all day from Derek Mason's defense. But he was fantastic on that final 97-yard touchdown drive, converting a fourth down, throwing a lovely touchdown pass to Ja'Cory Brooks to get that game into overtime. And, of course, played very well in the overtime. So Alabama wins it. Auburn, big gap by Tank Bigsby there. Some people will say he deserves a lot of blame for that mistake. Some will say not a ton. He was just going for the first down. You have to stay in bounds in that situation, period. That is a huge mistake. If he does that, they pin Alabama back with maybe 50, 55 seconds, having to go the length of the field. That's almost impossible to pull off with no timeouts and with a bad offensive line. So huge mistake by Bigsby. Yes, you can blame him a lot for that. That's why Auburn lost the game. And a tough break. But other mistakes were made, of course, for the Tigers. Should have gone for 2 in the first overtime there when they had it down to 1 play, with TJ Finley not being able to move much with a bad ankle. It was going to 2-point conversions anyhow after the first overtime, so they might as well have done it. Ultimately, they elected to kick. Teams tried to field goals in the second overtime. Then the stupid 2-point conversion shootout happened. Both teams scored in the third overtime. Auburn missed. Alabama scored in the fourth overtime. And that was all she wrote. So Tide stay alive for the playoff. They'll go to the SEC title game, of course, next week against Georgia. For college football as a whole, get rid of this stupid overtime system. I hate it. We all hate it. Go back to what it was before they overreacted to the LSU Texas A&M 7 overtime game back in 2018. Those things happen once every 2 or 3 years. Yes, the players are tired after that, but it's stupid to ruin the game by turning it into some hockey regular season-esque shootout. This is college football. This isn't a hockey regular season game on a Tuesday night in November that just needs to be done and move on. 1 of 82. This should matter a lot. Play it like a regular game. Stick at the 25-yard line and go from there. So I think we were cheated out of it. I think it probably actually helped Auburn going to that because they had the Gippy quarterback, the less talented team. Alabama had the momentum, but overall I still hated the way that game ended. But Alabama gets it done 24-20, 24-22. And after a number of painful losses in Jordan-Hare Stadium, this one actually goes the Tide's way. And again, they stay alive for a playoff berth. Tennessee 45, Vandy 21. Big day on the ground for the Vols. 2 guys over 100 yards. And caps off a bad 2-10 season for the Commodores. Vols finished 7-5. Probably headed to Music City Bowl would be my guess. Primetime, wild one, Baton Rouge. Tigers LSU 27, Texas A&M 24. Late touchdown pass from Max Johnson to Dre Jenkins wins it for LSU. Led most of the way. A&M came back in the second half. 2 Zach Calzada TD passes in the fourth quarter to take the lead, but couldn't finish it off. So LSU sends Coach Orgeron out on a high note. They finish 6-6. They'll probably go to a bowl somewhere. Orgeron will not coach the bowl game. And for A&M, pretty disappointing 8-4. 1-4 in their non-Alabama SEC West games. So you're not paying Jimbo Fisher $90 million guaranteed to produce 1-4s against Arkansas, Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. So despite the big one, Alabama win, I think overall a disappointing season for the Aggies. Probably headed to maybe the Outback or the Texas Bowl, I would guess, at 8-4. And Kentucky, Louisville, 50-21. Wildcats, 7 rushing touchdowns for UK last night on the road in Louisville. Will Levis had the first 4 of them. Chris Rodriguez had 1 in the second half, and a great job by that defense holding down Malik Cunningham. Only 180 yards of total offense, 9 days removed from that 300 passing, 200 rushing. Stellar performance in their big win at an albeit bad Duke team 9 days ago. So Kentucky 9-3, and I think they're headed to the Citrus Bowl in Orlando. Probably going to see Iowa or Michigan State there. And Clemson 30, South Carolina nothing. Bad game. Clemson defense dominated the poor Gamecocks offense. Took them to late in the third quarter to even crack 100 yards. Not a great game again for DJ Uyunglele, under 50% completion percentage. Big storyline to watch going into the spring and summer about what Clemson does at quarterback. But they finished the season strong, get to 9-3, chance for 10 with a bowl win. South Carolina 6-6, thrilled to just be in a bowl, and I'm guessing they'll go to the Duke's Mayo Bowl up the road in Charlotte and probably pack that place as much as you can for a mid-tier December bowl game. All right, spanning the nation quickly here. ACC, Wake Forest wins the Atlantic Division, taking down Boston College yesterday. A nice mature performance from them, bouncing back from the Clemson loss. They will play Pitt next Saturday night. Panthers already had the division locked up, but went up to Syracuse. Faced a 5-6 Orange team who needed a win to get to a bowl. And Pitt pretty much took care of business, 31-14 to finish 10-2. Panthers and Demon Deacons next Saturday night in Charlotte for the ACC title and a likely trip to the Peach Bowl. Elsewhere, Virginia Tech makes it 17 out of 18 in the Commonwealth Cup, beating Virginia 29-24 to get to 6-6. They'll go to a bowl, surprisingly. Well, on Friday night in Raleigh, NC State furiously comes back to beat North Carolina 34-30. Tar Heels were up 2 scores late, allowed a long touchdown pass, and they should have been in prevent, and then an onside kick. And just a complete malfunction down the stretch for the Tar Heels. A tough 6-6 season for them. NC State with that win that knocked Clemson out of ACC title contention. It became a moot point on Saturday once Wake Forest won. But Clemson's ACC title reign of 6 years officially ended Friday night with that NC State win over Carolina. To the Big Ten, of course, the big one yesterday, Michigan 42, Ohio State 27. Great job by the Wolverines on both sides of the ball. Had C.J. Stroud under pressure all day. Running game was great with Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins. Pretty much controlled that game. Buckeyes had a brief lead in the second quarter, but Michigan was phenomenal. Again, Aiden Hutchinson looks like a potential sneaky dark horse Heisman contender now heading into championship weekend. He was in Stroud's business all day. Just a great job by Michigan. They looked like the more composed team, the more confident team. They looked like the team that had dominated this series rather than the Buckeyes, who had won 9 straight since their last loss to Michigan. But it's the Wolverines. They're the Big Ten East champs for the first time. They will play Iowa next week for the Big Ten title and a CFP berth. Hawkeyes quite fortunate to get to Indianapolis. They were down big to Nebraska, 21-6 on Friday. Came back and won it. Stop me if you heard this before. Nebraska blows a big lead and loses by 1 score. 28-21 Iowa in Lincoln. Nebraska finishes just a wild 3-9 season of close losses. And the Hawkeyes, on the strength of Minnesota's win yesterday over Wisconsin, they win the Big Ten West outright for the first time since 2015. So Michigan and Iowa next Saturday night, first time matchup in the Big Ten title game in Indianapolis. Snow game in East Lansing, Michigan State 30, Penn State 27. Puts the Spartans in a good position for a New Year's Six bowl. They probably will need their friends at Michigan to beat Iowa next week. Doubt the Big Ten's going to get 4 in the New Year's Six. They could, but unlikely. So Michigan State, should Michigan win the Big Ten, probably headed for either the Peach or the Fiesta Bowl at 10-2. Let's see. Big 12, Bedlam, wild, wacky, strange, sloppy, just a crazy game. Lived up to the name for sure. Not particularly well played. A lot of turnovers. Both teams fumbled a punt deep in their own territory. But Oklahoma State gets it done. Rallies from 33-24 down in the fourth quarter to win at 37-33. Their first Bedlam win since 2014. They were already in the Big 12 title game, but they knocked Oklahoma out. So the 6-time reigning Big 12 champions will not repeat, similar to Clemson. And it'll be Baylor and Oklahoma State next week in Jerry World for the Big 12 title. Baylor 27-24 winners over Texas Tech yesterday. Struggled a bit. Had the game in control for most of the way, but just couldn't quite put Texas Tech away. Ritter's got a 53-yard field goal attempt at the last play that would have tied it and sent it to overtime. It was no good, so Baylor survives 10-2, and a really fun battle of good defenses next week between the Bears and Cowboys and Jerry World. They met earlier this year, I believe back in late September, early October. Oklahoma State won by 10 in a pretty good game in Stillwater. So rematch next week in Dallas. What else in the Big 12? West Virginia gets bowl eligible. They get to 6-6. TCU does not get there after a loss at Iowa State. They look like they'll be hiring Sonny Dykes in the next couple of days to take over the Horned Frogs program. Pac-12 real quick. Oregon, the Civil War winners yesterday. They clinched the Pac-12 North, 38-29. Pretty comfortable win, not even that close, as the score would indicate over Oregon State. They will play Utah, who had already locked up the South last week when they beat Oregon, so the second meeting in 3 weeks on Friday night in Las Vegas. Apple Cup, nice win for Washington State. Ended an 8-game losing streak, maybe 7. I don't think they played last year, so we'll say 7. Cougars 40, Huskies 13. Miserable 4-8 season for Washington. We'll see where that coaching search leads. And Washington State will not have a coaching search. They named interim coach Jake Dickert the full-time head coach last night. Nice job by him taking over at midseason after Nick Rolovich was fired, going 4-2 and having a nice 7-5 season. So Cougars don't quite win the North, but still a successful season, and we'll see where their bowl destination will be next week. Arizona State Territorial Cup, easy win over Arizona, and UCLA caps off a pretty good 8-4 season, knocking off Cal. And I'll throw BYU USC in there, even though the non-Pac-12 team won. Cougars 35, Trojans 31 in the Coliseum. Had a late stop on a 4th down pass that was caught 1 yard shy of the line to gain near the 20-yard line. USC was trying to drive for the game-winning touchdown, but BYU wins it 5-0 in the Pac-12. Or against Pac-12 teams this year for BYU. Quite a season for Kalani Sitake. That's 2 years in a row now where they've overachieved and been super impressive. And for USC, 5 home losses this year. Just crazy. They're 4-7. We'll see what their coaching search does in the next week or so. They got to close the year with the makeup game at Cal late next Saturday night. But both teams 4-7 and headed nowhere. And Group of 5, an independent. Cincinnati rolled over East Carolina. Tricky spot on Friday, but they handled that well in Greenville. Jumped up 21-3 early and never really gave the Pirates a shot. So they moved to 12-0. They'll host Houston for the AAC title next week, and pretty much, I think, at this point are guaranteed a playoff berth should they win that game. I don't think Oklahoma State will be able to catch them at 12-1 should Alabama beat Georgia. If Georgia beats Alabama, it's a moot point. They could be as high as number 3 there. Notre Dame rolled over Stanford 45-14. Just such a shame they had a terrible schedule down the stretch here. Irish playing really good football, dominating some bad teams, but just haven't played a quality opponent since that loss to Cincinnati. But at 11-1, still very much in play. Probably need 2 of Georgia over Alabama, Houston over Cincinnati, Iowa over Michigan, and Baylor over Oklahoma State. 2 of those 4 things happen. Notre Dame probably still will sneak into the playoff at 11-1, despite that earlier loss to the Bearcats. And what else? UTSA, losers for the first time this year. They weren't going to New Year's Six Bowl regardless, but I thought the carrot of a perfect season would keep them locked in. Not so yesterday. 45-23 loss at North Texas. They were right for the pick and had some close wins the last couple of weeks. Whether it was this week or next week against Western Kentucky, kind of felt like a loss was coming for the Roadrunners. But they take one yesterday. They'll bounce back. Next week, host Western Kentucky in the Alamo Dome for the Conference USA title. And I think that's about it. Heisman Race, I think Bryce Young is the favorite. I don't think he has to beat Georgia to win it, but I do think someone could come from behind and catch him, whether that be Kenny Pickett. If he has a big game against Wake Forest, he should against that Deacons defense, or one of the defensive guys. Mentioned Aiden Hutchinson at Michigan, Young's teammate, Will Anderson, who was phenomenal again yesterday, and probably Jordan Davis, the best candidate, the big defensive lineman for Georgia. So I think it's probably down to about 3 or 4 guys. Bryce Young is the favorite. I think C.J. Stroud's probably done, not playing next weekend. Matt Corral not playing next weekend. Kenneth Walker not playing next weekend. So I think it's probably Young, one of the defensive guys, or potentially Kenny Pickett should he have a huge day in the ACC title game. All right, my top 10 real quick. Oregon back in at number 10 with Oklahoma losing. Ole Miss is still at 9, sticking with Baylor at 8 after the win over Texas Tech. Ohio State falls to 7. I have Oklahoma State at 6, Notre Dame at 5. Likely to flip those next week should the Cowboys knock off Baylor and win the Big 12 to get to 12-1. But for now, Irish still ahead because of their dominance over the past 4 or 5 weeks. Alabama at 4 after another narrow escape. Cincinnati at 3, vaulting Michigan to 2 now after the win over the Buckeyes. And, of course, Georgia at number 1. So next week's schedule, 2 games Friday night, Western Kentucky at UTSA for the Conference USA title, and then Oregon-Utah in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 title. Saturday early, you got the Big 12 game, Baylor-Oklahoma State in Arlington, and then the MAC title game, Kent State, which stopped the 2-point conversion in overtime, which would have given Miami, Ohio the division title. Instead, it's Kent State. They win it. They'll play Northern Illinois and Detroit next week for the MAC title. And then busy late afternoon window next week, of course, highlighted by Georgia, Alabama, 4 o'clock on CBS. Also have Houston, Cincinnati at that time on ABC for the American title. Pretty good Sun Belt title game as well there. App State at Louisiana Lafayette. Dylan Napier probably going to coach the Raging Cajuns, but may have already been named the Florida head coach by then. We'll see how the week goes. And Mountain West in that window as well. Utah State at San Diego State. And then 2 games in prime time, ACC game in Charlotte, Pitt and Wake Forest, and the Big Ten game in Indianapolis, Michigan, and Iowa. And to wrap it up, last regular season game of the year, late next Saturday night